welcome Jonathan Abro as our guest speaker. Some of you might know, he was an avid computer worker at the Rightful site many, many years ago, and he's now living in London. He's a freelance IT professional specializing in IT project management of large-scale software development and IT accessibility for all forms of disability and impairments. He's also involved in various charities, including RNIB and Retina UK. He has retinitis pigmentosa and very reduced vision. But he's passionate about travel and he doesn't allow his vision to get in his way. His highlights include camping on the ice of the Antarctic, standing on all 7 continents, and to celebrate his 50th birthday, he was raising money at the same time for research into RP and raising awareness. He climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. Jonathan, it's my great pleasure to introduce you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Claudette, for that very generous introduction. And first, may I say many congratulations to the new panel, to the new chair, and especially to Ilani on what an achievement to be going off to the Paralympics. I'll be watching closely, Ilani. I'll be following your progress here in London. So hello from London. I'm right in the middle of London. For those of you who know London, I'm close to Hyde Park, Marble Arch and Oxford Street. So really right in the middle of it. And my condolences very much go to you on the sad loss of James, your chairman. And it was interesting that you mentioned the Ride for Sight and how he was involved. And yes, I have very fond memories of being with you, Claudette, on the Ride for Sight, inputting the details of the people as they came in. And such a fantastic achievement that, you know, I read on your website that it's been going for 32 years, and I think you've raised over 10 million rand. So that is incredible. So very well done. And who knows, maybe one day I'll find myself on the back of a tandem riding the race. That would be just incredible to be able to do that. Although I'm very happy to be speaking with you today. I'm going to just give you a little bit of a background of myself and then a bit about the technology journey that I've been on over the last, 25 plus years. As a youngster, I didn't know that the words retinitis pigmentosa even existed, let alone what they meant, as I'm sure is the case for most of us before we got diagnosed. And I remember very clearly I had been working for a few years, and I took a gap year to go traveling around the world. And my gap year lasted over 2 years. And at that stage, my parents decided that they wanted to see me, because in those days, in the early 90s, there was no WhatsApp or FaceTime or any of the things that we enjoy today. So they came and met me in the States. And I remember driving them through Denver in Colorado. And my father saying to me, "Do you know you've just gone through a red light?" And I asked him what light. And although I carried on driving for a bit there on that holiday, I made a few more mistakes. And so I was very quickly moved from being behind the wheel to next to the wheel, and my father drove for the rest of that. I came back to South Africa at the time and went through, a friend of mine who was is an optometrist in Durban, and then onto a specialist, and then sent up to Johannesburg to meet with Professor Neville Welsh. I'm sure some of you on the call will remember him. And when I went back to Durban and got my final diagnosis, I was told there and then that I could no longer drive a car. So I did drive myself home. I was there on my own at the appointment, and I gave my keys to my younger sister. And apart from one moment where I was in the Drakensberg with my family and I drove the car on a grassy stretch, which I think they all had heart failure watching me do. I haven't driven a car since, but I never give up. Maybe one day I'll get an opportunity to drive a supercar down an airstrip or something like that. As Claudette said, I've been in IT and had a computer career, ever since I was a teenager. I've been using computers, and once after I'd been diagnosed, I was living in Durban and then later moved to Johannesburg. And I moved around Johannesburg because there was no Uber at the time. So I relied on public transport and friends helping me get to and from work. And I remember living in Killarney, and my office was in the city, so I would hitchhike while I was waiting for the bus. And sometimes I'd get lucky and get a lift, and other times I'd just have to wait until the bus finally showed itself. Later, my office moved to Sandton, and I moved to Sandton as well, and I could walk to work, which was brilliant. But then my office was moved to Harton, and I couldn't afford to go and live in Harton. So again, I was back to relying on help to get there. In '96, my mentor at the time gave me the opportunity to move to London. And having traveled and lived in the UK, I leapt at the chance. Initially, I'd actually been planning to go and try and live in Sydney because I'd heard about public transport there. But he was having none of it. And well, I'm very pleased that he was. When I moved to the UK, I started learning more and more about RP as I discovered what the future meant. And I got to go to Moorfields Eye Hospital to meet with the then Professor Bird. And I was at the point where the way my vision has deteriorated was that I had both central and peripheral, but I was a bit like looking through a donut or a bagel. I missed things around the ring in both eyes. And so because the distance from the center to where I started missing things was small enough, it was less than 10 degrees, I was immediately considered legally blind. So I couldn't get away with trying to drive a car here either. I actually built the website for Retina UK. At that time, it was called the British Retinitis Pigmentosa Society, quite a mouthful. Later became RP Fighting Blindness, and then more recently became Retina UK, which in line with Retina South Africa and some of the other organizations, I think is a fantastic name because it's all about inherited retinal diseases. It's not about RP. Science has moved us on to all sorts of different conditions that have been identified through gene identification. So it's brilliant. My tech journey has been, well, there's three parts to my tech journey. There's high tech, low tech, and no tech. And I'll give you a brief run through some of that. And there is so much amazing technology around, and living at the time that we all are, just seeing how Claudette is doing all the screen sharing and everything that she is, and what we're all able to do with our PCs and our smartphones and all the other tech that's available. So I think our most common device is a smartphone really, and a PC, and so I've been through all the different assistive tech when being on this vision journey. I remember when I was deciding on my first smartphone which one to go with, and at that stage my vision was around using the colors, inverting colors and having good contrast. And in fact, at the time, Android was better than Apple. It was one of the few times in the assistive technology journey that I've been on that I could actually say that I could have gone with either of them. And what made me decide, and this is some advice that I always share, is that it wasn't about just which phone was best for me, but it was also thinking about which phone would be best for me to get help from my partner, my loved one, or somebody who I knew. Because if I, for instance, went with an Android, and my partner's name is Annie. She's the most amazing lady, and she's been along this entire sight loss journey with me. We've been together many, many years. And so I'm very lucky to have somebody so special in my life. And Annie decided that she wanted an iPhone. I decided based on that I would go with an iPhone, because if I had to try and explain to Annie how an Android worked every time I needed help, it wasn't going to work. So that's something to consider whenever you are buying technology, is think about who's going to help you when you get stuck. Because unfortunately, with apps, with websites, and with all the other things that we use, there are times where even I get stuck and I need help. And so that's really important. The three main areas that we use are the screen magnification, which nowadays is built right into the operating system, whether you're using a smartphone, a tablet, or even a computer, be it PC or Mac. It's incredible. When I started using magnification, I had to get at the time I was using Magic Magnifier and various others that I tried. And nowadays, a lot of it is just built into Windows. Of course, if you need specialist magnification, then yes, you do still need software. And for instance, Zoom Text or any of the other softwares that are available. But before you go and buy any of them, try what's built into, whether you're using a Mac or a Windows PC, try what's built in, because I think you'll be surprised, especially as we've gone, Windows 10 has progressed, and Microsoft and Apple and Google for that matter on the Google laptops, they've all progressed so incredibly, and they've made accessibility such an important part of what they're doing. Likewise, as I said, I needed, when I had the vision, to invert my colors. To give you an idea of where my vision is today, I've got a monitor on because I know that I use a monitor because it's part of the PC. Whether it's on or off makes no difference to me because I'm purely a screen reader user now. But in the days when I was using screen magnification and color inversion, it was necessary to make things bigger and bigger all the time. And I got to the point where if I went bigger than I was already at, and I'll give you an example of how big I was at. I was on a video conference, a telephone conference at work one day in an office. And I started talking about the spreadsheet that I was using. And the guy who had asked me the question was sitting 2 desks behind me. And he said, "Not to worry, Jonathan, I can read it. Your screen's that big." So that was the point where I decided it's time to start learning about screen readers, because I didn't need to switch completely, but it would make my life easier. And this is something that I also really want to share with everybody is, don't wait until it's time to use some part of assistive technology. Start learning about it. Find some things that interest you, whether it's on your smartphones using VoiceOver on the iPhone or TalkBack on the Android, looking at the magnification, looking at how you can use your tech to even magnify things like what you've got on the papers. I'll try and give you a demonstration of that in a few minutes. But it's so important. And one of the things that I was told very early in my sight loss journey by another person with RP, he actually asked me, can I touch type? And I'm a computer programmer at heart. And so computer programmers, when I was a programmer, I can't speak for today, we never learned to touch type. That wasn't what we did. We used a couple of fingers. So I didn't learn to touch type. And he said to me, learn to touch type today. And he was right. I did. There are so many different tools that you can use to teach yourself to touch type. Free. BBC have a tutor. There's another one called Mavis Beacon. There's one that you do need to pay for called Azabat, and that was one that I got to use as well, which was brilliant. So it doesn't matter whether you're using a free one, a paid one, getting help from somebody to help you learn, but anyone who is, regardless whether you're on a sight loss journey or not, learning to touch type is such a fantastic skill. And nowadays I am a touch typist. I don't need to see a keyboard, and unfortunately I can't, but it doesn't stop me from doing anything. With the screen reader that I use now, there are again so many different ones. With the Mac PCs or the Mac books, it's built in using VoiceOver. And with the PCs, Windows PC, you now have got it built in Narrator. Now, Narrator is a great place to start because it's improved, and so you can fiddle around and play with it and learn a little bit about it. Once you get proficient in that, you might find that it's not enough. So there are more powerful ones, and I'm sure Microsoft will continue developing Narrator as it goes along. So keep up to date with your Windows software is another important thing, because as they improve things, so it becomes more, the features are more rich, and you're able to do more and more. There are 2 other screen readers that I talk about. One is called Nvda, which stands for Non-Visual Desktop Access. That's a free screen reader, and it's for Windows, and again, very powerful. And then JAWS, which is the I guess, the granddaddy of all screen readers. JAWS stands for Job Access with Speech, which is how it was originally named. And today it's certainly in the UK used in all corporate environments. So when you need a screen reader when working for a big company, they will more than likely get JAWS for you because it is the most used and most reliable one. And nowadays it's also got what they call Fusion, which is they've added in Zoom text as a magnifier. Now I'm going to stick mainly on the phone and an iPhone, as I mentioned earlier. I'm just talk a bit about some of my favorite apps, because these are the ones that I use mostly. And although I know there are reams of different apps, these ones do most things for me most of the time. So the first one I'll talk about is Seeing AI, because this is brilliant. It allows you to do so much. It allows you to hold it over a piece of paper and just read what's there, or to scan a whole page and then save it for future use. I'm going to turn it on just to give you a little demonstration. I've got a piece of paper here that I got. And for those of you who can see, I'm holding my iPhone up. When I turn it on, and I'll turn the volume up, I'm hoping you can hear that. Now you'll be able to see that it's just a blank screen. I have what's called a screen curtain on.
Screen curtain off.
I've taken it off. I think my speaking rate's a bit fast, so I'm just going to turn that down.
50%.
Right, so I'm going to just unlock my phone.
Page 2, passcode field. 0 of 6 values entered.
1 second.
Seeing AI.
Right,
Menu.
so I'm in the app called Seeing AI, and Karen, can you hear what it's saying on the phone?
Recognizing English.
Yes.
Button.
Okay, great. So what I'm going to do now is, for those of you who can see, I'm holding up.
WhatsApp.
Oops.
Now, Kappa in Metsa.
Oops, just reading out my alerts. So what I'm doing is I'm holding up the piece of paper that I've got, and I'm going to put the phone in front of it.
Being matched with wispy hair. I being matched with wispy hairs. 1930 being matched.
So as you can see,
so important.
I'm not going to. I won't stay on that for too long.
Menu.
But what's the most amazing thing is that it just reads. You hold the camera up to it, and it just reads. So, for instance, if you've got a pile of posts and you want to go through it and just see which one's for you, that's a great way to use it. And you can scan a page, so it'll help you with how to hold it, if it can't see the left edge, it'll tell you. Brilliant. Now, I don't know if it works in South Africa, but it has a recognizing products, and you hold it up to the product. It helps you find the barcode with a beeping sound. As you turn the product, it'll start beeping when it sees the barcode, and it'll then check in its database if it's got that product. Not all products, but certainly if you use some of the major brands, it's worth trying that out. It can tell you the color of something. Now, this I take with a pinch of salt because I like bright clothing. I think I'm wearing a red shirt today. And so sometimes I'll use it to try and distinguish my color of my shirt. I'll tell you an even better way in a minute how to do that. When you're traveling, you can use it to sort out currency. So when I'm in the hotel room, I can go through the currency that's in my wallet, and I can make sure that I've got it in the right order, because that's something so important, is always making sure you know what's in your wallet, what order it's in, and so that you can be careful when taking it out. Although, to be honest, these days I far prefer using plastic where I can, and I actually use Apple Pay on my phone. It allows you to determine how light or dark the room is. Now, for any of us who have a little bit of residual vision, no matter how big or small, we can usually see whether the room is light or dark. But imagine if you've got practically no vision, you can't even distinguish. This will help you by alerting you by the level of the tone. The lighter the room, the higher the tone. So, and then it's got other things that are being developed, like recognizing handwriting, trying to describe the scenery around you, and with some hilarious results. So use this very much with a pinch of salt, and that is describing a person. Now, best to use it on yourself because you'll see what hilarious results, or on a family member. But it's also great fun at a dinner party. Just try it on somebody and see what results it comes up with. Sometimes it makes you younger, sometimes older, so you've been warned. But it's on Android phones, there's one called Google Lookout, which is in the latest version of the Android operating system. And honestly, it is amazing how good that is. It's becoming as well. There's a food labels mode on that. And what that does, instead of looking for the barcode, you slowly, it gives you vocal feedback on turning the product around, and it tries to recognize the product based on what the camera is reading. And it also has an explore mode where it tries to identify what's around you. What's brilliant about both of these is that they're constantly evolving, constantly improving, and they're free. Seeing AI and Google Lookouts are built, well, Seeing AI you need to download, and Google Lookouts is, I'm not sure whether it's built in or whether you need to download it, but again, it is free. There is another one called Envision AI. This is a paid app and it works on various subscription models. Also has a place for certain tasks. At the moment, I don't need it, so I haven't used it because I get away with using the apps that I've got. But I have heard webinars where Envision AI has helped somebody because you can get help from a person in the background. So, there are different apps for different uses. Talking about getting help from somebody in the background, another fantastic app, I can't speak highly enough about this, is called Be My Eyes. Now that does exactly what it says. Somebody can be your eyes. How it works is you download the app, you register as a user or volunteer. Now, I just want to praise the volunteers for a moment, because there are volunteers in every country except a couple where the app is not allowed. And there are over 5 million, I checked yesterday, there are over 5 million people who have volunteered. And there are just over 326,000 people who have registered as users, me being one of them. So in essence, there are 15 people around the world waiting to help me for every single one of us users. And the way it works is when you call first available volunteer, it rings on a number of people's handsets. And it bases it, say for instance, you were at home in South Africa and it was 11 o'clock at night and you were trying to do something and you wanted help. Well, you've put in what your first language is, and it will then find somebody in a time zone where it's not going to wake somebody up. So it won't be in South Africa. It'll most likely be at that time of the day in the States. I for instance, had a time where I was home alone. The TV wasn't working, and with my peripheral vision, I could sort of see that there was a pop-up on the screen. So I turned on Be My Eyes. I called somebody. A lady in Romania answered me. She read what was on the screen, and we figured out how to fix it. Brilliant. And it makes my day, and it makes the person on the other end of the call's day as well, because they're helping you. They go away with a bounce in their step, being happy to help. But what's very important with any sort of help like this, please, whatever you do not show your face, do not show any personal information about your name, your address, and especially nothing financial, no matter what. That's part of the terms of using these apps. And the only places where there's an exception to that rule is in Be My Eyes. There is specialized help. So for instance, you can call up Google, I'm not sure about Google, Microsoft, Apple, could be Google, and depending on where in the world you are, there are different institutions that will help you and are on that. There are some banks. There is a brilliant one that joined it for ladies, was one of the pregnancy test providers, because they got a lot of feedback that ladies who can't see don't want to have to ask somebody to help them with that. So they did that. With here in the UK, the NHS have got a specialized help team for doing COVID testing. So there are many different things. The only way you can find out what's available in your particular country is to download the app and then go into the specialized help section to see who's there to help you. Now, I heard a question come in about gaming platforms, and that's such an interesting one because my gaming days used to be down the arcades in Durban at the beachfronts, playing on Asteroids and Pac-Man and things like that. And of course, now technology's moved forward and we've gone into such a different world. When I could see, I liked more of the Sudoku and those sorts of mind games. Sudoku, for those of you who've played it, there's 91 squares, 9 across and 9 down. So to remember those is a bit too much for my brain. So I haven't played it for a while. There are some accessible, well, I know of one accessible version, which I haven't yet tried, and I will get around to trying that at some point. But there are many, many other games available, a lot of them the mystery adventure and question games. And so certainly there are gaming platforms around, and the best way is obviously to go online and search for them. If you're using an iPhone or an Apple product, there's a website called Apple Viz. So that's Apple, and at the end add on VIS, Victor Indigo Sierra, appleviz.com, which is a great area to look up any question you have on Apple products. And of course on Android, head straight for Google. But yeah, there are a lot. And I'll come to another platform in a minute, but I'll stay on the phone just for a couple more minutes. And when it comes to navigation, getting about, Apple Maps on the iPhone, I find brilliant. Google Maps is also amazing. And, of course, Google Maps works across both platforms, Android and Apple. And that's always my starting point. I'll use, and I confess again, I haven't tried this on an Android, but on the iPhone, I'll say, start walking directions to wherever it is I'm going. And that'll help me get the directions. So you can do it with walking, with driving, with anything. Just use Siri to ask questions, and that will help you get to where it is you want to go. So using Apple Maps or Google Maps, amazing. There are two apps that I'll just mention. One is called Soundscape. That I think could also be just an iPhone product. And what that does is it tells you what's around you. Again, with this one and the next one, please, somebody try them, download them, and try them out in South Africa. See whether they have added South Africa to the list. If not, send a message to the developers and ask them to. With Soundscape, you have to actually have hearing the app in both ears through earphones of some sort. And as it tells you on the side of the ear what it's telling you. So if there's a building on your left that it can tell you the name of, it'll tell you that. So the problem with that for me is not being able to hear the ambient sounds around you. I have found a solution to that. There's a type of headset called bone conducting earphones. Now, for those of you who can see, I'm holding them up. They're called Aftershocks. And if I put them on and turn to the side, you should be able to see that they actually come down in front of my ear, not into my ear. They're red on my head. And they conduct the sound through the bones in front of your ears. Whenever I go out, you'll see I'm either wearing these bone conducting headsets, or as you can see, I've got one wired earphone in my ear. Now, the reason I do that is so that I can keep my phone firmly in my pocket and only take it out if I really have to, and find a safe space to do that, because not being able to see means that people can come up to me without me knowing it. So I'm very cautious about it. Doesn't matter where in the world I am, I'm the same. I'm always very cautious about making sure that I'm in a safe space to use my tech. The other app that does a similar thing to Soundscape, which does work on Android, is called Lazarillo. And the great thing about Lazarillo is that you can hear it through one ear, and it'll tell you on which side of you it's on, as well as how far away from you it is. So that's also very clever. You can use these and incorporate them with your directions in the map app. So quite astounding how you can get around and make use of all of these different things on the apps and in your pocket. And again, both of those are free, so very good to use. And on the Android, you've also got Google, which is developing. Now, I said about learning, and it's so important to do. So the ways that I suggest learning the voiceover or talkbacks is using some of the tutors. I found an app called VO Starter. Now, please don't worry about writing all of this down. I will send all of it to Claudette so that it can be shared in some notes at a later stage. VO Starter is a free app. It's slightly behind, so it hasn't got all of the latest accessibility features that are in the most recent versions of the Apple iPhone operating system, but it does give you the full basics, and it's a really, really good way to learn about voiceover and to try out the different features. And I used that when I was first learning voiceover to help myself learn, and it was really such a useful tool. For Android, go onto the Google website, search for Android Talkback and how to learn, and it'll come up with all sorts of guides on that, again, built into the Google website and various other places. So as you can hear, I really highly recommend learning things, learning the magnification, learning the color, how you make the inversions, and you'll find that there are many shortcut keys and shortcut gestures that you can use. I'm going to step away from the iPhone and the Android phone now and talk about the smart home devices as well, because with the Amazon Alexa and the Google Home, and I hope I didn't wake up anybody's Amazon What's-it, I won't say that word again because I know it wakes up the devices. There's so much built into that as well. And again, going back to the gaming question earlier, you can play some of the games on the devices. And I think it might be as simple as saying, waking it up and saying, play a game, or play me a game. But there are skills built into them, much like there are apps built into iPhones and tablets and Android phones. So really worth, if you've got, whether it's the Amazon device or the Google device, trying them out and seeing how they do and whether they're something that work for you. And wonderful thing about these is that you can get the basic version. They're not the most expensive things to buy, and you don't have to learn any programming or anything. They just need English. So it's talking to the air and getting a response from a device that can help you. And likewise, there are smart televisions that we can use these days. And mine is an early version of a smart television, so it's not the best. They've come on a long way from there, but I've learned my way around them and how to use the buttons that I need to. And I've got various other tips and tricks that I've taught myself over the years. And that's what we all do. We learn things along the way. I said there were three parts to this: high tech, low tech, and no tech. So let me tell you a little bit about some of my low tech stuff. And those are things generally that can help around the kitchen. For example, this very simple little liquid level indicator. I'm holding it up for those of you who can see it. To describe it, it's a little plastic device which has got three metal prongs that go over it, and it's when liquid touches it, so you can hook it over the side of the cup or the jug that you're trying to put liquid into, and as the liquid touches it, it will beep and vibrate. And so it stops you from creating what I've done many, many times before. I used to use this, making a mess on the counter or burning my fingers because I'm waiting to feel the hot water in the cup. The other thing that I use is called a pen friend. Now I'm holding it up again, and it's the shape of a pen. It's the size of a fairly big pen, and it's got a number of buttons on it. And how this works is that it's got magnets and stickers which you can affix to things, and you can then record your own messages just using the four buttons that are on this. You can record anything you want to. So what I've done is I've got a little round magnet in my hand. I'm going to turn on the device. You'll hear a beep. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to touch the pen to the device, so that to the magnet, so that you can hear what I recorded.
Hello, Retina South Africa. This is my pen friend. I use it for labeling all sorts of things. My favorite being the boxes of pods, so I know what I'm using in my Nespresso machine.
I hope you could hear that, but that's really one of the things that I do use it for, is because I can't read the labels on the Nespresso pods, so I have to have a way of identifying them for myself and being able to know which one I'm having. So that's a brilliant thing. You can use it for labeling your Tupperware food containers in the fridge, or cans that you want to label. And the other thing that you can do with the magnets is put it on the fridge, and then you can record messages for each other in the house, so that, let's say you were going out, or someone was going out and wanted to leave you a message. You can do that. And the pen itself is magnetized, so you can, so you can get a magnet for it, and you can hook it to the fridge, or you get a lanyard to put it on a hook. And as with everything, as many of you will know, keeping it in the same place so that you know where to find it is always the important thing to do. Other things I do around the kitchen is making sure that everything that we buy, whether it's a washing machine, tumble dryer, dishwasher, microwave, or even stovetop, is making sure that they've got knobs that are tactile and that I can learn. I don't do so much cooking anymore because Annie is just wonderful and she does that. So I've become a very good laundry boy, and I've had to learn how many clicks to turn each dial on the washing machine to make sure that I'm doing the laundry the right way. And then moving on to the no-tech section. Well, white cane, that's a no-tech thing. And for those of you who don't know, the white cane comes in 3 different types. The first one being a symbol cane, which does exactly that. It's a very thin, short cane. You hold it in front of you, and it's a symbol to show people that you've got some sort of a vision problem and that they should be aware of that. Then from there, it'll go to the guide cane, which reaches almost to the ground and is a bit thicker, and it'll help you with some of the obstacles. And then there's the long cane, which is the one that you tap along with to find all of the obstacles and make a noise so that people can hear you. And so that's what I use now, is I use the long cane for getting about. But the first time I picked up a cane, I had 3 things happen to me that helped me really get pushed to using it. Because living in London, it gets dark early. So in the afternoons, getting about became very stressful for me. And being that I'm a sizable guy, I'm just short of 6 foot and I'm quite broad. So if I bumped into people, people considered me rude. And in fact, a lady came up behind me, tapped me on the shoulder and told me I was rude. So I explained I couldn't see very well, and we went our ways. And likewise, I walked around a corner into some pedestrian traffic, and a couple were walking along, and I walked through the middle of them, so they weren't happy with me. And then worst of all, I walked into someone in a wheelchair. Well, that's not something you want to do. He swore at me, quite rightly, and then I explained to him what went on, and we went our separate ways. So I had some help from some colleagues I was working with, and they insisted I go out that day with them with my cane and give it a try, which I did. And honestly,
Oops, we seem to have lost Jonathan.
and it's definitely
We lost you for a moment there, Jonathan.
Oh, am I back?
Yes, you're back.
Okay, good. So yes, using a white cane, it gave me back my independence in that respect. And the other no-tech is what we all come built in with, or most of us do, is our voice. And that is being able to ask for help. Don't ever think that asking for help is showing a sign of weakness or losing your independence. Knowing when to ask for help and asking for help is the way to retain your independence. It means you're in control. you're asking someone to help you, you're telling them what you need the help to do, and best of all, you're giving somebody the opportunity to help, which everybody wants to do, no matter what. I know I can feel when somebody helps me how I've helped improve their day at the same time as them improving my day. So please, never feel shy about asking for help, because you're going to make somebody else's day better. That's been a real gallop through my tech journey and a bit about how I do things here and the life that I lead. And I really want to say thank you very much for allowing me this opportunity to join you. I know I've covered a lot of stuff. I will send an email to Claudette with some of it. And I'm also, the way that I actually got invited was I sent an email to Claudette of an article I wrote recently for the Retina UK newsletter. I've been asked to write a series of tech articles for Retina UK. Now, if Retina South Africa would like them, I'm more than happy to share them and for you to publish them if that's of some use to yourselves as well. So again, Claudette, we can take that one, and I'm very happy to do that. They'll only be coming out, I'm not sure if it's twice a year or more frequently, but more than happy to share them. So that's everything that I wanted to chat with you about today. I'm more than happy to take any questions if there are any.
Wow, thank you so much, Jonathan. That was amazing. And I really look forward to getting that list. I did try and scribble them down as you spoke. And there is one question. What is better, Seeing AI or Google Lens, or are they the same?
So Seeing AI works on the iPhone, whereas Google Lookout works on the Android. So they're the same. They're on one on each device. When I moved on to using VoiceOver on the iPhone, it's a number of years ago, and at that stage, the iPhone was the only place to go for a screen reader. Whereas today, they're both on an equal footing. They each have their pros and cons. In fact, I was listening to a webinar recently about the Google Talkback, and I'm a bit jealous of some parts of it because you can customize more on the Google Talkback than you can on the iPhone VoiceOver. So there are certain gestures I'd like to be able to customize, which I can't. So I'm really hoping that in this instance, Apple will follow Android rather than the other way around, which has been the case for so many years. But yeah, they're both very much the same. It's just which platform you're on.
Thank you. And that's the end of the questions. Thank you so very much. Back to you then, Claudette and Manny.
Right, I just want to tell Jonathan that I quickly tested AI on a barcode, and it successfully actually identified my hand cream. So it does work in South Africa.
Fantastic. That is great news. Thank you, Claudette. So please, everybody, download Seeing AI or look at the Google Lookout on your phones, whichever device you're on, because it will help. It really will.
Thank you. And then, as we said, over to you, Manny.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Karen. And yeah, huge thanks to you, Jonathan. Yeah, thank you for that wonderful session. It's very informative, and I think given everyone a lot of insight and a lot of apps to try if they haven't already done so. So thank you again, Jonathan, for that. It was very helpful.
Pleasure.